My sister-in-law demanded I give her my hotel room during our family trip. She said, "I need it more than you." I agreed, but when she realized the room I gave her was next to the elevator, her furious reaction was hilarious. The moment my wife told me we were going on a family trip with her brother and his wife, Nicole, I knew something was going to go wrong. Nicole is one of those people who somehow always gets her way, no matter what. She whines, she guilt trips, she plays the victim, and somehow, people just give in to whatever she wants because it's easier than arguing with her. This trip? It was supposed to be a fun, long weekend in Las Vegas. My wife and I were excited. We don't take vacations often, and we were looking forward to relaxing. The plan was simple. My wife and I had our own room, her brother Matt and Nicole had theirs, and my in-laws had another. Everything should have been fine. But then Nicole decided that my room should be hers. We all checked into the MGM Grand, got our room keys, and went upstairs. I had barely set my bags down when my wife's phone rang. It was Nicole. My wife answered, and before she could even say hello, I heard Nicole's voice whining through the speaker. "This room is so small. I don't know how we're supposed to fit in here with the kids." For the record, they had 2 queen beds. More than enough for 2 adults and 2 little kids. But Nicole always has to have something to complain about. A few minutes later, she and Matt showed up at our door. Nicole walked in without even asking and immediately started inspecting our room like she was a real estate agent. "This is way bigger than ours," she announced. I shrugged. "I mean, they're probably about the same size." "No, ours feels cramped," she said dramatically. Then she turned to my wife and me with her best fake nice voice. "You two don't have kids, so you don't need as much space. It would just make more sense if we had this room." I looked at my wife, waiting for her to shut this down, but she just looked at me like, "What do you want to do?" Nicole kept going. "Think about it. We have 2 kids. You two just have each other. We need the space more than you." I was getting annoyed, but then I had an idea. A beautiful idea. I smiled and said, "Sure, Nicole. You can have our room." Her whole face lit up. She thought she won. She had no idea what was coming. You see, before agreeing to switch, I already knew something she didn't. Our room. It was right next to the elevators. If you've ever stayed in a big Vegas hotel, you know how bad that is. The constant ding-ding-ding of the elevators opening and closing. The drunk tourists yelling at each other at 2 a.m. The kids running up and down the halls early in the morning. It's the absolute worst room in the hotel. Nicole had demanded my room. So I gave it to her. She and Matt took their bags and moved in while my wife and I went to their old room, on a nice, quiet part of the floor. That night, I slept like a baby. Nicole. Not so much. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to get some water, and as I was walking back to bed, I heard something through the wall. Yelling. Muffled, but definitely Nicole. I pressed my ear against the wall, and oh my God. She was losing it. She wasn't just annoyed, she was furious. The elevators had been non-stop all night. Every few seconds, ding. Doors open. Loud voices. Ding. More noise. A group of drunk guys were arguing about pizza in the hallway. Some lady was on the phone, talking so loudly it sounded like she was trying to reach someone across the country without using a phone. Nicole was screaming at Matt. "Why is it so loud? Make them shut up. I can't sleep in this." I stood there in the dark, grinning like an idiot. Oh, this is beautiful. By morning, I was well rested. Nicole, on the other hand. She looked like she had been through a war. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were bloodshot, and she was clutching a cup of coffee like it was the only thing keeping her alive. I walked into the hotel restaurant and gave her my best friendly smile. "Morning. Sleep well." She glared at me. "We are switching back." I sipped my coffee and shrugged. "Oh, I'd love to, but you already moved in, and you did say you needed it more." She clenched her jaw so hard I thought she might break a tooth. Nicole spent the entire breakfast complaining. People were in the hallway all night. There was a bachelorette party screaming at 3 a.m. The elevator dings every 5 seconds. I acted surprised. "Wow, really? That's awful." She glared harder. Matt, who had also suffered through the night, spoke up. "Yeah, it was pretty bad." Then Nicole's own son, who's 5, by the way, so he has no filter, made it so much better. "Mom, why didn't we stay in the other room?" Nicole snapped, "Because we needed more space." And then, the cherry on top, her kid whined loudly, "But the other room was better. This one is too loud. I don't want to sleep there again." Her face turned red. Everyone at the table was looking at her, including my in-laws. And that's when my father-in-law, who never gets involved in family drama, sighed and said, "You asked for that room, Nicole." She was seething. And I was enjoying every second of it. The second breakfast was over, Nicole turned to me. We're switching back now. I shrugged. Sorry, but we already unpacked. Her eye twitched. I had never seen someone so angry over a situation they had caused themselves. And the best part? This was only the second day of the trip. She still had 2 more nights in that room. I couldn't wait to see what happened next. After breakfast, Nicole stormed off, probably to figure out a way to manipulate someone into fixing her situation. Matt looked miserable, but honestly, that was on him. He married her. My wife, to her credit, just smirked at me. You knew about the elevator, didn't you? I sipped my coffee and grinned. She needed it more, remember? We had planned to spend the day walking the strip, hitting a couple of casinos, and checking out the Bellagio fountains. I figured Nicole would sulk in silence. I was wrong. Because Nicole wasn't done yet. We had barely made it past the New York casino when my wife's phone started ringing. Nicole. My wife sighed and answered. What, Nicole? Then she froze. Her face changed from annoyance to panic. What? Wait, what happened? I immediately tensed. If something was actually wrong, I'd help, no question. My wife turned to me with wide eyes. She says there's a huge leak in the room. My first thought. No way. MGM Grand is a massive hotel, they don't just have random leaks flooding rooms. But my wife looked genuinely concerned, so we turned around and rushed back. When we got there, Nicole was standing outside the room with her arms crossed. Matt was behind her, looking exhausted. What happened? My wife asked, breathless. Nicole let out a dramatic sigh and pointed inside. I stepped in. Looked around. Everything was dry. Not a single drop of water anywhere. I frowned. Where's the leak? Nicole gave me a tight smile. Well, it was leaking earlier. But it stopped before you got here. I turned to Matt, raising an eyebrow. He just shrugged. Nicole kept going. It must have been a pipe issue or something. Ugh. I can't stay in here if the plumbing is acting up. We should just switch back to be safe. And there it was. I crossed my arms. You made us come all the way back here for a leak that doesn't exist. Nicole gasped, all fake offense. Are you calling me a liar? I didn't even blink. Yes. Her mouth dropped open. My wife snorted, trying to hold in a laugh. Matt just sighed. Nicole, we're fine. Let's just drop it. She glared at him. And that's when I knew she was going to try something else. A few hours later, we were back in our nice, quiet room, taking a break before heading out for dinner. Then came the knock. I opened the door and found a hotel manager standing there. Good evening, sir, he said, professional but stiff. We received a complaint about your room. Your, sister-in-law said you were unhappy with your accommodations and wanted a different one. I grinned. Oh, Nicole. I let out a long sigh, rubbing my temples like I was so tired of this nonsense. Oh, man. Yeah, I think there's been some confusion, I said. See, my sister-in-law actually took our original room. She insisted on switching with us. But now she's regretting it and trying to manipulate someone into giving it back. The manager's face twitched. He knew. This wasn't his first entitled guest. He gave me a small nod. So, just to be clear, you are not requesting a room change. Nope, I said cheerfully. I'm perfectly happy with our room. If anything, I'd love if someone could remind my sister-in-law that she requested the switch. The manager nodded again, this time with a slight smirk. Understood, sir. I'll take care of it. 5 minutes later, we heard Nicole screeching down the hall. By the time we made it to the hotel lobby for dinner, Nicole was fuming. She cornered my wife and me outside the restaurant. You think this is funny? She hissed. I blinked innocently. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, clearly trying to not cause a scene in front of my in-laws. I know you set me up. You knew that room was terrible. I shrugged. I don't know what you're talking about. You needed it more, remember? She clenched her fists. I swear I saw a vein pop in her forehead. And then, she did the most desperate, entitled thing I've ever seen. She turned to my mother-in-law and said, Mom, tell them to switch back. My wife and I both froze. Oh, she was pulling out the big guns. But my mother-in-law. She just laughed. Laughed. Right in her face. Nicole, she said, shaking her head. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Nicole's jaw dropped. She couldn't believe that even my in-laws weren't backing her up. She let out a frustrated growl, turned on her heel, and stormed away. I was dying. My wife was trying not to laugh. Matt. He just looked so tired. And I knew, at that moment, that Nicole wasn't done yet. She was going to try one last thing. And it was going to be glorious. After Nicole's dramatic failure at dinner, I thought she'd finally give up. I underestimated how stubborn she was. Because later that night, as my wife and I were getting ready for bed, we heard a knock at our door. I sighed. If that's Nicole, I swear, but when I opened the door, it wasn't Nicole. It was security. And they looked serious. Sir, the security guard said, we received a report of unauthorized guests in this room. I blinked. What? The guard shifted, glancing into the room behind me. A woman named Nicole said this room was assigned to her, but she found out someone else was inside. I stared at him. Then I laughed. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. The guard didn't laugh. Sir, we need to confirm your reservation and ID. Now, I wasn't worried, I had all my documents. But the sheer audacity of what Nicole had done had me shaking with rage. She had reported me as a trespasser in my own hotel room. I handed over my ID and room key, keeping my voice level. I think you're being used to settle a petty family argument. The guard checked everything and nodded. Yeah, looks like everything is in order. I'll let her know she's mistaken. Mistaken. That's one way to put it. He left, and not even a minute later, we heard shouting down the hall. I peeked out just in time to see security shutting Nicole down. But, I was supposed to have that room, she sputtered. One of the security guys sighed. Ma'am, this guest is properly checked in. You're in a different room. Nicole was fuming. But I should be in that room. I was just trying to fix a mistake. The guard gave her a look. The only mistake here, ma'am, is this false report. If you make another one, we'll have to ask you to leave the hotel. Nicole turned red. I thought she might actually start crying. Matt, who had come out of their room looking half asleep, dragged her away before she could make things worse. I shut my door, looked at my wife, and burst out laughing. She shook her head, amused. I don't know why you're laughing. We still have 2 more days with her. She had a point. Nicole had tried to take my room. She had lied about a fake leak. She had even called security on me. And yet, I knew in my gut, she wasn't done yet. The next morning at breakfast, Nicole was silent. I wasn't. So, Nicole, I said, smirking, anything interesting happened last night? She shot me a look that could kill. Before she could speak, my father-in-law sighed. We heard what happened. He turned to Nicole with the disappointed dad's stare. What were you thinking? Nicole exploded. I was supposed to have that room, she shrieked. They knew it was better and tricked me. The whole restaurant went silent. People turned to stare. My wife covered her face with her hands. Matt rubbed his temples like he was so tired of this. And my father-in-law. He just sighed again, looking completely done. You need to drop this, Nicole. Right now. Nicole clenched her fists. She knew she had lost. But she still had one last move. One last pathetic attempt. And this one. This one was going to backfire harder than all the others combined. Nicole was finally backed into a corner. She had tried everything, manipulation, lying, even getting hotel security involved, and nothing had worked. But instead of just accepting her loss and moving on like a normal person, she decided to double down. And this time, she went too far. That afternoon, while the rest of us were out sightseeing, Nicole went to the hotel front desk alone. She had a plan. She pulled out her brother's credit card, Matt's, and tried to bribe the front desk staff into giving her a new room. Look, she told the receptionist, sliding the card across the counter, I don't care how much it costs. I just need a suite. Something far away from the elevators. Just charge it to this. The receptionist looked at the card, then back at Nicole. This isn't your name, she said flatly. Nicole waved her hand. It's my husband's. It's fine. The receptionist did not look convinced. We'll need his authorization first. Now, a normal person would have just backed off. But Nicole. She forged his signature on the receipt. And that was the final straw. That evening, we were all getting ready for dinner when Matt's phone buzzed. He frowned at the screen. Did we book another room? We all froze. What? My father-in-law asked. Matt's face darkened. My card was charged $500 for a room upgrade. Silence. Then my wife muttered, no way. We all turned to Nicole, who suddenly looked very, very nervous. Nicole, Matt said, his voice low and dangerous, tell me you did not just book a suite on my card. She forced a laugh. I mean, it was just a little, you forged my signature. Boom. That was it. Matt had never raised his voice to Nicole before, but at that moment, he lost it. Do you even realize what you just did? That's fraud. You can't just steal my card and sign my name like that. Nicole started backpedaling fast. I was gonna tell you. Cancel it, he snapped. Right. Now. She hesitated. That was a mistake. Matt was done. He stormed down to the front desk himself, and we all followed, me, my wife, my in-laws, and a very nervous-looking Nicole. When we got there, the receptionist immediately recognized Nicole. Sir, she said to Matt, we flagged the transaction because your wife forged your signature. We were about to contact you. Matt ran a hand through his hair, clearly trying to stay calm. Cancel the room. I'm not paying for it. The receptionist nodded, but her face was serious. There's a bigger issue, sir. Attempting to use someone else's card without permission, especially with a forged signature, is a serious violation of hotel policy. We have to report it. Nicole blanched. Report it, she echoed weakly. Yes, ma'am, the receptionist said. We've already informed hotel security. Right on cue, 2 security officers stepped forward. Nicole took a step back. Wait, this is a misunderstanding, one of the officers held up a printout. Ma'am, you signed for a transaction that wasn't yours. That's attempted fraud. Hotel policy requires that we remove you from the property. Nicole's mouth dropped open. My father-in-law just sighed and shook his head. Unbelievable. Matt looked disgusted. You pulled this on yourself, Nicole. And then. They kicked her out. Right then and there. A security officer escorted her upstairs to pack her things while the rest of us just stood there, watching her life fall apart. Nicole was banned from the hotel. Not just for the trip, permanently. She had to book herself a last-minute room at another hotel across the strip, and since Matt refused to pay, she had to cover it herself. And let me tell you, she was miserable. She spent the rest of the trip sulking in her overpriced last-minute hotel room, alone, while the rest of us actually had fun. Matt. He barely spoke to her. And when we got home, he filed for divorce. Apparently, this wasn't the first time Nicole had pulled something shady with money, just the first time she got caught. And after this stunt, Matt was done covering for her. Nicole tried everything to talk her way out of it. She cried, she begged, she even tried to blame me for setting her up. But Matt wasn't listening anymore. Within a few months, their divorce was finalized. Matt moved on. Nicole. She lost everything, her cushy lifestyle, her free ride, and her access to my in-laws' money. And the best part? To this day, every time someone in the family talks about Vegas, my father-in-law just sighs and says, well, at least none of us got kicked out of a hotel this time. And I just sit back, sip my drink, and smile.